Watch today's episode and learn how Michael explains how self-doubt is what's keeping you back from growing. Welcome back to today's episode of Clicks and Bricks, everybody. My name is Ken, and today's episode is brought to you by mygosite.com. MyGoSite is one place. It's got everything you need to run your small business. It's got a website builder, a funnel builder, a content management system with a customer management system, everything built in on one platform. Right now, they got a 14-day free trial. Go to mygosite.com and get all set up. Today we have Michael. He's the founder and CEO of Forge Fitness and Nutrition Coaching. How are you doing today, Michael?
Doing great. Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us today. Very much appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy and taking the time out to talk to me and help our audiences learn about your business and really some of the ebbs and flows of what it's like throughout your career. So I very much appreciate having you here today. Can you tell us a little bit about what Forge Fitness is and how you got started in that business?
Sure. Forge at its heart is a highly customized delivery system of fitness and nutrition based on relationship. So we have our coaches very engaged with each of their individual clients to essentially custom build programs on condition. So wherever you may be in your life journey, or whether it be your age, or it could be a sport, it could even just be post-rehabilitation, you name it, whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish with your well-being, Forge is one of the places that you can go. It includes nutrition programming, which is very hard to find, the combination of online training plus nutrition. We have a registered dietitian on staff, and we're a little bit on a higher educated team. So we have physiologists, kinesiologists, and I was a college instructor for 10 years for advanced fitness and nutrition sciences for Bryan University, which was a lot of fun. So we look at things in a little bit different way. We look at things basically, we really look at the individual person, and we foster a relationship with that individual so that we can really create sustainable, reasonable programming where they can get results. They have an advocate for their well-being. And we have a funny saying in the company, which is don't use Google, message us if you want to know something about fitness and nutrition. So what we've done is we've kind of created this environment of education, of sustainability, and the practical application and approach. For example, most of our clients don't even work out in a gym. Most of them are home-based workout enthusiasts, and they use bands and balls and dumbbells or whatever it is that you buy, and we can essentially program anything, and that makes it really useful, and there's a lot of utility in that. And and everybody's in a different place. Some people need a 30-minute quick workout, and then other people want to have a little bit more of a protracted workout. It's like an hour and a half. We do have a few people who like really long workouts. And so we essentially just custom build it to that individual's needs. And it's actually quite remarkable and fulfilling.
So, like, somebody comes on, they have diabetes, they're 350 pounds, they can't even really do a squat right now. You're going to help them with the physical activity that they need. And on the flip side, you've got a 20-year-old athlete that is looking to push past that. You've got a platform for both of those individuals.
Right. Yep.
That is fantastic. So, and it's all on one app. How would they find this app? They go to, is it just forgept.com?
Yeah, on our website, you can go there, and once somebody enrolls, then you can download the app, but there's nothing in it until we build it.
Right.
And our developer is Trainerized. As a matter of fact, we have a new program with them. I'm very excited. As a matter of fact, we're having a really exciting revision of the app coming in the next few weeks. We partnered with Trainerized to give us a little bit more utility in the app. There are some stability problems when you're working with an app as large or has such a large platform as Trainerized, and we're solving that problem by getting our own app built by them. So Forge ended up having to become an app developer. I don't know anything about that, but we went through that process, and Trainerized was really good with us. And we just got all of the splash screens back in. The app is going to look fantastic. It's extraordinarily functional from a training aspect. It's designed specifically for a personal trainer to write high-level programming in any type of workout modality you can imagine. So, for example, interval timers, traditional set and rep systems, circuit systems, supersetting, you name it. We can basically manipulate any acute variable. And acute variables, for those people who don't know, it's very important when you choose an exercise program, or if you have one written for you, that it's predictable in its outcome, and it's based on your current condition. I got a really good story. One of my long time clients, she's been with me since 2013, lovely lady. Tina once wanted to run a half marathon. And so when I had started working with her, she brought me the workout program that she had paid for from, I think, Runner's World or whatever. And she's like, Michael, I really wanted to run a half marathon for my 50th. And I did this 16-week training program. And I was so excited. I was so fast. I felt so good. She's like, and then when I did the half marathon, she's like, I tanked. She's like 5 or 6 miles in. She's like, I don't know what the heck happened. I just completely tanked. I carb loaded for 3 days. I was hydrated. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I said, okay, well, let's take a look at the program. And she hands it to me. And I said, wow, this is actually really well done. This is an excellent program for a sprinter. You've been training as a sprinter, not a marathon.
Right.
So the adaptation of the body was outside of her expectation, and she wasn't able to perform the way that she had intended. This is true for all aspects of fitness. If you want to look or perform in a very certain way, the body responds to specificity, which is essentially a specific adaptation to an imposed demand. Now, clients don't need to know this stuff, right? We know this stuff on the back end. But what we find what we have to do is we have to educate them so they can understand why they're doing things, and then they buy into the program, because it's not like it's just some random workout that just shows up. It's with intention, and that's fundamentally different. So you've got to look at the sets and the reps and the tempo, the frequency, the intensity, the duration, the exercise type, the exercise order. All of those things matter, and that will help you predict outcome, and that's where you find sustainability, because you get results.
Right. I am a competitive boxer, and 2 weeks before I compete, I literally live the day that I'm going to live the day of competition, right? Just so that I know. So 2 weeks before I start relaxing to heal my body, we go through like, this is the food that I'm going to eat that day. These are the amount of rounds that I'm going to compete against, like literally everything. And in IT, we do the same thing. Before we're going to do a big production, or a big push on code, we do it in a fake environment first. So that's a great story, and you're right. You could be training in business and in health. You could be training a great program, but for the wrong thing.
That's right.
It's really horrible. You also said something about that Forge had to become an app developer, right? And this is so important for business owners whenever you're going into business or you're going to start a business, and you're considering, how am I going to serve my client, right? Am I going to serve my client through an app? Am I going to serve them through a standalone building, or am I going to serve them through a strip mall? Whatever, how you're going to service your client, you're going to become an expert in that. You think, I'm going to own a building, well, guess what you just became? You became a facilities manager.
That's right. That is so true.
So if it's an app, you have to know, you at least have to have somebody on your team or know some basic fundamentals of whatever your delivery system is for your client, right? You can't just like, oh, the app will take care of that stuff, or the landlord will take care of that stuff. You have to know some basic fundamentals of your delivery platform, whatever it is, right? If it's a distributorship, brick and mortar building, or an app. So thank you for saying that in that way, that you had to become an app developer. Even though you're outsourcing it, you have to learn that language, right? It's a different, health is one language, app development's one language, website development's a different language. So it's really important to keep those things in mind and not, be too depressed about them. You're like, oh shoot, I have to learn a new skill. I got to learn these new tasks. I got to learn these new things, and try to be proactive, because it's going to be much better for you if you know that going into your situation, to then realize, oh shoot, I was supposed to be changing air conditioner filters this whole time, because that could be, landlord could put that air conditioner on your budget if you weren't maintaining it. So those are important little nuances that you have to think about whenever you're going to go outside of the comforts of somebody else being the boss, right? So thank you for bringing it up in that way, because it did tip that off for me pretty good.
You're right about that, and there's more to it even from my perspective. The reason that I've kind of gotten into the technological side to some degree, and I'm really not savvy when it comes to the deep tech, especially related to the app. But there are functionalities that I either need for the current paradigm that Forge is in, but also for my long-term plans. I have a tendency to be extremely strategic. I like to plan things out very systematically, but maintain agility if things aren't going the way that I wanted, or having that agility to make changes of my goals or timeframes for my goals at least. And learning a little bit more about how the app functions has allowed me to consider essentially suggestions or directives that I've been given to Trainerize about what I want this thing to do. And we've taken it well beyond fitness. There are, and this is general in the Trainerize platform, but we very much use this within our organization because of the whole coaching aspect. But we don't it's not just about posting on a calendar workouts and a schedule. We can even post goals and habit-based goals. Even things like, you name it, it's all custom. Let's say a client's really struggling with getting 100 ounces of water. We can actually make that a specific check goal right in the app. We can do anything. And it really does help. Listing helps people. And I feel like that when you have a program that isn't just focused necessarily on executing an exercise or tracking a calorie, which we're more into intuitive eating, but that's a whole nother topic. But really the technology has to support the business deliverables, but more importantly, it has to be scalable with my expectations for the organization and our plans. Look, I'm really straightforward about this stuff. I'm not interested in having 5, 10, 15 trainers. I'm nuts. I want 1,000 trainers with 100 clients each, So how do you do that? Well, you have to have an infrastructure of technology that supports that. And so there's other things too. We have a direct API through the new app that Trainerize has created for us. And we have a CMS system on the back end that's almost finished. It's custom built. We can actually manage our client base at a really high level. I mean, I can get very granular. Right. And there are all sorts of other systems in place.
It will always almost be finished. on your back office. Yeah. I've never had a back office that was done.
Oh, so. I'll tell you, it's been 12 weeks so far that we've been on the journey, and we're doing all of this too, all at once, right? So the revisions of Trainerize has been given to us, and the new branding and the new functionality of the app, which will be a nice transition. The second thing is the new CMS system that we've got in the background that actually colludes with Trainerize and pulls that data so that we can mine a little bit better and have more connectivity to clients, because that's really why I'm doing it, because I want to be able to, as it stands, to give you a piece of understanding. As it stands now, if a client misses 3 workouts in a row, there's no system or process that lets us know. We would have to actually physically go into that client's program and check. That's not reasonable when you're dealing with the kind of interaction that was required. I mean, we do, coaching calls, we can do 10, 15 coaching calls in a day. Coach Tate has probably the highest client base of the coaches. And I cap them out. They're only allowed to have so many of each program. Otherwise we lose quality, and I'm not interested in that. Quantity is not what I'm after. I'm actually after high quality. But like I said, 1,000 trainers with 100 clients is a reasonable amount of clients to manage. 1,000 trainers is ridiculous. That is the most absurd goal from a business perspective. But I like to aim high. And if I don't get there, then I don't. I'm actually quite satisfied with what we're doing. And I feel like the value that we deliver is worthwhile. But anyway,
So are your trainers, are they part-time employees and full-time employees, or are they 1099s?
Oh, no, right now they're contractors. Yeah.
They're contractors. So they're actual employees. So you vet them all. This is not an Uber for fitness, right? You're going to get somebody that's vetted, that has the proper skills, the proper techniques, and the proper certifications, correct?
The requirements to be a coach with Forge are quite extensive, and very few people actually qualify.
Okay.
So this may sound odd, but I'm not really interested in college degrees, to be frank with you. I found that some of the absolute best personal trainers that I've ever met have GEDs. They barely made it to high school, but they did go and they got it's a trade.
Correct.
And they go in, they get certified, and then they learn and they immerse themselves in their trade. Sometimes they're the absolute best personal trainers you could ever find, or somebody with just maybe a couple certifications. Maybe they have a standard PT certification that's accredited, and then maybe a follow-up nutrition certification. It's their personality and it's how they interact with people that makes the difference.
Just so there's people, and I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that's thinking about getting into the fitness industry as an employee or a business owner, but you can, without any kind of degree or certificate, you can put yourself on an app and motivate people to do stuff and do some calisthenics, right? Some squats and things like that. But to actually grab a pair of weights and pick them up, you have to have some kind of certification to do that, correct? Or is it you have to have a certification to do that and be insured? Is that the deal?
It's all of those things. Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest problems that we're seeing in social media is, of course, a catalyst for this, is a disassociation between a qualified fitness professional and somebody who just likes to work out. So there's a difference between a professional personal trainer and a professional exerciser. So when you go to social media, this is the problem. And it's very convoluted. Most of those influencers, the guys and gals with the, several million followers who have the booty band workouts, they have constantly showing their abs or whatever it is. Most of those people are not even certified trainers. They're paid to exercise, and they're paid to look good, and they're paid to promote products. That's what these guys and gals are doing. And I don't have any problem with that, as long as they're doing this within their scope of practice. And if there's no certification, they have no business doing this whatsoever. And yes, there is a liability to it, and there's more liability in a gym, I would say, for sure. But
yes,
personal trainers are rarely brought into a litigious situation. It's actually quite rare. But yeah, that's a good question.
Anytime that you're in business, and I've had several businesses throughout my career. If somebody's participating in an act that could be dangerous or they could get hurt in, it's very unlikely that you're going to get sued if they get hurt, because if they're participating in the activity, right? I'm a boxing coach. I don't really worry about getting sued if a kid breaks his nose, right? Because he's participating, he signed the waivers and all those things. So activities that somebody's participating in are generally fairly low risk activities for the business owner.
Yeah, because there's an assumption of risk that the client makes.
Correct.
And plus, we don't mess around with, there's two things we don't mess around with. We don't mess around with people's money. So we're very, very transparent about that. And the second thing we don't mess around with is their safety. So there's a 3-step process that a coach has to consider when they're writing a program. Just three simple things before they actually put the science to it. Number one is it has to be safe. Second, it has to be as effective as possible for that client's condition and goal. And the third is, you gotta try and make it fun. To whatever degree exercise is fun for that individual. But that's the rule. That's the cardinal keys. It's got to go in that order. And so we've never had any problems. We do have clients who get hurt now and again, but we've never had any issues. But
you're going to pull a muscle here and there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, my age.
I have a fun play on words on what you just talked about a little bit. I have a gym that I own as well, and I say it's all about me. You have to motivate, educate, and entertain. Right, so that's what you got to do. So I use the word "me" as an oxymoron, an opposite of what I actually mean. Is what they're supposed to do. Like, you have to motivate them, you have to educate them, and you have to entertain them, and you have to do all three of those things together.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's one of the primary reasons I even started Forge. It was taking the two things that I loved the most, which is being an educator and helping people find solutions for their well-being. And that's kind of the baseline of how Forge even started. The idea, at least, the concept started. We really started hammering it out around June or July of 2016. Okay. We had really kind of made we knew we were selling Elite Athletics at the time, the company that I was the CEO and co-owner of, and the family who brought me in on that venture, lovely people. We had made the decision that it was time to move Elite Athletics on. And so we actually ended up selling the Louisville Slugger, of all things. And that happened, we knew that it was going to be December 31st, 2016. And I wanted Forge ready to go January 1st, 2017.
Gotcha.
And so actually this January will be our 5th year in business, which is a really exciting milestone for me. But I have a quick story I got to tell you about how this happened, because this is kind of
absolutely.
So in executive management, you know how it is, especially in the fitness industry. You're 12, 15 hours a day. It's just the way it is. And so I was working very hard. We were really working towards making sure this acquisition went through smoothly. We had a lot of assets. In fact, one of them sitting behind me. We had tons of equipment. We had tons of members. We had all these really high-level programs that had been developed, athletic development, sports performance programming that was very, very detailed, very robust. To the degree where we even had professional athletes super in on it. They're like, wow, this is amazing programming. So we knew we had something, we wanted to sell it. We wanted to sell it right. And so it gave me time, that period of time where I had to take a step back in my life and say, well, what do I want to do? What's most important to me? Where am I at? How do I take my 20 years in the industry? Well, not quite 20 at the time. This was my 20th year anniversary. It was 2021. What do I want to do? So I made this assessment, this personal assessment about my life. And I decided that time was something that I was sorely losing. And you never get that back. You can always make money, but you cannot get back time. And for 20 years, rounding up, of course, grinding it out. In the fitness industry, we have the term bell to bell. I'm sure you've heard that. You get in the morning and when the club is popping and you don't leave till after prime time at night. Man, it's exhausting.
As a boxer, we live by that term.
Oh God, it's exhausting. Yeah. And as I'm getting older, I was just like, well, how long do I want to be in an executive management for someone else? And having already had a successful personal training business and having already had a consulting firm that was doing very well, which I still run, I don't do much with it anymore because I'm not super passionate about working with venture capitalists on fitness and nutrition products or ideas. So I really focus more exclusively on Forge. So I got a funny story. So I had decided that I wanted to gain back my time and I was willing to sacrifice money for that. Because at this period of my life, that's where I was. And I knew that I could earn money. I always have been able to do that. I wasn't worried about it. So time was meaning a lot to me. And my wonderful partner, my girlfriend, Heather, she owns a graphic design agency called Turning Heads Designs. That's probably why Forge looks so good. She basically does all of our graphic work. And right. She's run Turning Heads for 11 years. Her last name is Turning, so Turning Heads Designs, right? And I remember that I'd come home for lunch on a Friday and I knew the deal with Louisville was going to go through. We were 6 months out from sale. And I walk in and it was noon on Friday and she's sitting on the couch watching Netflix with a margarita in her hand. And I said, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I just decided to finish work early. I'm just going to have a margarita and just hang out and watch. I don't know. It's something I wouldn't watch, like American Horror Story or something like that. Right. And I said, what the hell? So I sat down next to her and I said, okay, we need to think this through. I want this. What you're doing right now, I want this. And so how do we do it? And really, we just kind of started brainstorming, how do we get it to where I can work remotely, really focus in on my top passions, and those two passions were education and fitness training. And how can technology serve me in this? So we started the process, our due diligence. And then I did proofs of concept. I actually I did online training with current clients or people that I'd worked with at Elite Athletics and had them test it. So we did tons of beta testing before we even launched this thing. And that was really the driver. It was about taking control of my career, taking control of my time, and leveraging the advent of all this incredible technologies. Well, how can I do that, and how can I make it work for me and add value to my clients? And it is the best decision I've ever made in my career.
Fantastic. So I think this is really important for people to understand. Is you had a vision of what you wanted your life to be like, right? And it was kind of on a whim almost. Like you came home one day and saw this happening. You're like, wow, didn't know that was possible, right? Yeah. And then from there, you're like, okay, this is how I want to live my life. How do I do that? I think it's so important because people are they don't think of that at all, right? They're just in their life every single day, running on autopilot, thinking that this is the life that they have. They don't know that they can orchestrate it. They don't know that they can do their own thing and that they don't have to ask permission from anybody to just change their life, and they can start it right this second if they want to, right? So I think it's an important message for people to hear that you have to, before you can change your life, you have to know what you want your life to look like, right? And if you don't know what you want your life to look like, it's probably going to look like it does right now, right? You're just going to go through the motions and you're going to live your life, and that's okay for a lot of people. If that's what you want, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to level up, or my daughter calls it leveling up, right? Like, hey, I'm not old enough yet, so I got to level up my game before I can do those things, right? So, but if you don't have that picture, you won't move anywhere. You'll just stick right where you're at.
You're right about that. This is also bleeds over into how we coach our clients. We call it life architecture. You basically have to build it. That's what Forge is, by the way. The life is a fire. It really is. And we have the ability to manipulate ourselves and forge ourselves into whomever we would like to be. We can create outcomes. So the tagline for Forge is to remake yourself, because every day you got to bring that hammer and you have to pound out who you want to be. Life isn't going to give it to you. You have to forge yourself, and the trial's usually by fire. And so I thought that was really a kind of a profound take on it when we came up with the name Forge. Originally, it's going to be called, we talked about Phoenix something. I like this idea of when things seem at their worst, you can always get through it.
Right.
You can always rise from the ashes. And I thought that it was a little pessimistic. And the second reason that we didn't go with it is because there's a ton of Phoenix Fitnesses out there. So once we did a Google search, we're like, okay, that name isn't happening. And then, and actually the name came up because I was talking to a couple, my partners from Elite Athletics and Heather. We were just, because they wanted to be involved, but that wasn't something that I was interested in having. Forge is 100% self-funded. I have no partners or investors or anything like that. I've just did it all myself. But we were having a discussion about what it looks like. And I said, we just got to forge ourselves every single day into what we want to be. And that it just kind of took off. And as soon as I said the name and we decided on Forge, Heather had the logo in 10 minutes. She's like, oh my God, I know exactly what to do. And the idea here, you might like this. The design of the logo is actually very long-term. I want it to be, again, I'm going into my crazy goals.
Right.
I want it to be, if you were to just see the logo just by itself, you would be able to, oh, that's that fitness company I heard of.
Yep.
Right? Nike has the swoosh, Under Armour has that weird spider thing, and we've got the F logo, and I wanted it to be a self-contained logo, and I'm really happy with it. I get a lot of compliments on it, which is pretty cool. But
it's a solid logo.
Yeah. And it does exactly what it's supposed to do, And,
right.
And anyway, I thought that was interesting. But
have you heard the story on the Nike swoosh?
I vaguely recall that maybe I had heard it, but I don't remember it.
So he paid. A girl did it for like $25.
Oh wow!
And then he hired a college girl to do some designs. It was a ridiculously low fee. He ended up going back and helping her out tremendously, I believe. But it's been a while since I've read the book about the Nike swoosh logo, which is pretty interesting story if you really dive into that story, because today it's one of the most iconic logos on our planet. But
easily.
I would give Michael Jordan more credit to that than the actual logo.
Athletes definitely drove the brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so sure. You said, you're talking about the Phoenix and rising again, all that stuff. So I would love to hear, do you have a tip or trick that you use in the business or in your personal life, doesn't really matter, on when you have adversity, how do you overcome that? If it's, a physical trick, mental trick, whatever it is, when you're at your worst, or whenever things don't go your way, and I imagine for you, it's not necessarily always a financial thing, but since you're so systematic, right, if things change on you, right, and that's, if you're going from A to Z, if P decides to be different than you expected, that could really screw up the end goal there. So how do you overcome those trying times in life and business?
Well, this question is pretty deep, so I'm going to go deep. I think the first thing that I would say is that I don't pursue happiness. Happiness is nothing but an emotion. It's just likened to anger. It's not worth pursuing. However, joy is worth pursuing, because joy is a state. It's not a situation. And so I found that the more joyful I try to make my environment and my life, and bringing people around me within my sphere of influence who have a similar approach to being positive. There's a pessimism that goes along with it, a stoicism probably, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the dominating factor in life. Yeah, life is hard and life is pain for a lot of folks, but I really feel like that if you find joy, then passion is usually the byproduct of joy. And then when you've got that, you can basically assess, well, what do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to go? Who am I? And what kind of value am I going to add, if any? And you got to make those recollections every single day. You have to make a determination as to what you're going to do. And the other thing is that you have to think of things in the terms of fluidity. Life is unpredictable, and there are things that are going to come at you that you couldn't even possibly fathom. And when they do, you have two choices. You can either control the way you react to the circumstances, or you can let the circumstances dominate and control you. I don't particularly like the latter. It's not the way that I think. I do not like the victim mentality. I think that it's self-limiting. I think it puts you in a box where you're unable to be more, and that is a shame. When you think about plants and you put them in a small pot, and that plant has potential, but if you don't move it into a pot that allows that potential, then it will always be small. It's the same phenomenon happens with large fish when you put them in small tanks. They don't grow past the size of the tank.
Right.
And this is something that human beings do all the time. We have all these self-imposed limitations, biases, we have corruption of spirit and all these other things that we have to contend with, and they're quite complicated. And I don't like when we try to distill human beings down into just, modern politics is absolutely reprehensible to me. But I would say that as an individual person, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I? Who am I? What do I want to do? And how am I going to accomplish that? And who am I bringing with me? What effect is that going to have on the world? And that's why I said life architecture. So for me, I can tell you the last time that I had a bad day was June 20, is end of June 2016 when my grandmother passed away. It's the last bad day I've had. I don't have bad days because I disallow them. I have frustrating days, and I have things that happen that aren't necessarily optimal in life.
Right.
But I most certainly do my very best to control how I react to it. I'm not always successful, by the way, but it's a practice. It's a skill. I'm writing a book called The 90-Day Habit Transformation. Essentially, this thing is designed to help people create sustainability, fitness, nutrition, and personal improvement. And in there, I have a whole series of techniques and ideas and experiences that I've had by working with thousands of people on hard stuff, right? Because when people come to you for fitness and nutrition, they're usually in pain. There's something not right. It's very rare that somebody joins and they're like, hey, my life is awesome. I just need somebody to write me kick-ass workouts. That's usually not what it is. And so behavior is something that's really important to consider in your life. How are you behaving, and what effect does that have on the people around you? Because that external environment you have some control over. So I just feel like that's always been something that's helped me, was when I find joy. For example, today is extraordinarily busy for me, but I've been in the office since 4:30 a.m. and I'm probably not done until 7 p.m. We've got so much going on, so many moving parts, so much tech. Oh my gosh, Ken, not only do we have the new app coming out, the CMS system that's being created, the website's getting a redesign and refresh, and then we have some other institutional things that we're creating from a technological standpoint. We're actually looking at being able to live stream classes. Is there all sorts of tech things that we've got going on? Like I said, I had to become a developer all of a sudden. We have a publishing company. I mean, the list goes on of all the things that are really, really busy. But even in all of that, and in the overwhelming workload, and having to work 15 hours a day for Forge is better than any other day I've ever had working 15 hours for someone else.
Right.
Because I had to make the decision.
I have two takeaways from that. I think I heard you say, not in these words, but I'm just going to do a quick little fun quote. Is self-doubt the small fish tank for humanity?
I think that it can be.
Yeah, definitely.
Self-imposed limitations, limiting beliefs. It's something that we have to deal with, this even in fitness and nutrition all the time. But you have to remember that fitness and nutrition are a byproduct of a series of behaviors that precede it. So what we do is we actually look to actually solve root cause problems for people.
Absolutely.
And that
my
makes
my second question for you is, have you read the book Greenlights by McConaughey? Matthew McConaughey?
But I've intended to, yeah.
It's a phenomenal book. I think you would absolutely love it for your joy over happiness statement. That's a huge McConaughey staple.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
it
is.
I'm going to check that out.
If you follow him, like some of his speeches, and the book Greenlights is, I would put it in my top 20 favorite books right now, or at least that I've read this year.
Yeah, so, right, exactly. I read up to 60 books a year, so I know. I'll put it on my Audible.
Yeah, actually, it's really good. And if you do the Audible, he reads it, so it's his voice, and it's it's phenomenal.
How long I can
yeah.
listen to that. No, that's fine.
Yeah, he's got. Well, it's an interesting voice that he has, right? He tells his story, and Greenlights is really just his story. It's not from him growing up and being a foreign exchange student, all those other things, and how he becomes the character that he is today.
I'll check it out.
But it's a great book. It's about Greenlights and looking for opportunity in the world. So if you're in the audience, you want to read it. It's a great book. I love it. I think it's a really great time. So you've given us a lot of tips and tricks on overcoming adversity. Is there any tip or trick that you have, like we've come over, and I think you might have already started talking about this a little bit, but when somebody is out of that adversity realm and they're living happy everyday lives, it's really easy to go on to cruise control and kind of just float through life.
Oh,
so
yes.
do you have, and I don't care if it's a trick to diagnose that, hey, I'm on cruise control and I need to get out of it so that I can thrive in life, or I've already diagnosed the fact that I'm on cruise control and I'm kind of at this plateau level and I want to thrive again. Do you have any tips or tricks to get people in the right mindset to thrive, or to break the mindset of being stuck in that rut?
Yes, absolutely. I would start by saying that comfort is the bedfellow of complacency. And that can be really challenging. When things are going really well, you don't want to muck with it. And we have a tendency to just kind of enjoy the ride. But I feel like when those are, especially now, if you look at historical humans, we didn't really have long periods of joy. They're typically spring and summer, and then, oh my gosh, try and figure out how you're going to make it through this winter, right? So we've changed a lot as a species. In fact, I think we've changed so quickly in some ways that we're not equipped to even manage some of this stuff. I think that's why the obesity rate is as painfully high as it is because we're like a bunch of crackheads that won the lottery all of a sudden. You don't get $100 million on the lottery and then all of a sudden not do crack anymore. You do more better crack, right? And so human beings for the last millions of years have been nothing but hunting and gathering, and oh my God, do we have enough to make it through this awful winter? So it's like, then all of a sudden we have this massive avalanche, no pun intended, of really, really crappy food, high processed, high calorie, low nutrition, highly convenient, very affordable. You can't even check out at a retail store without being bombarded by chocolate. Right? It's everywhere.
And not good for you chocolate. Crap for you chocolate.
Not good for you chocolate either.
Yeah.
In addition to
my mother will still say chocolate's good for you. I'm like, well, you're not wrong, but you're not right either.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's like people say, if you drink wine every day, that's okay. It's really good for you. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So
3 bottles is not a good idea.
We always have justification, But I was going to say that, we're in this situation where we've won the lottery with a nutrition, and we have these incredible sedentary jobs now because of the advent of technology, and that's really put people in a pickle. So, but coming back to your question, some of the tricks to kind of get out of this stuff is, I think that goal setting is underrated and it's misunderstood for those people who typically do it. See, goals are really fascinating to me because they're what could be. But goals only manifest through behavior, through action. They're kinetic. You don't just set a goal and just because you set it, you're going to achieve it. This actually happens in fitness. People try to buy their fitness all the time. They'll enroll in a program. And they're like, well, my work here is done. And it's really kind of a fascinating phenomenon.
I bought a pill or two in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to change my whole life. No, that.
Yep. So I think one of the things to do is that you have to have a level of conscientiousness. And this is a primary issue from my estimation, from what I can tell, is that the level of consciousness in people seems to be going down. I'll give you an example. So I have this process that we use in our coaching system here at Forge, and it's called wellness consciousness, and it's connected to something called the power of conscious response. Now, these are two very scary concepts because they require proactive involvement in your own life and the architecture of that life, and that can make people really uncomfortable because you have to make a fair assessment of what the hell are you doing? And sometimes that's an ugly mirror, right? Sometimes we don't like that reflection. And I think that I'll get to fear and why that is a limiting factor here, but I'll make this really brief. In wellness consciousness, the idea is this, is that we live in this world of careless unconsciousness. We don't think about our food too much, not really. Activity's second place in our brains about anything else we have to do that day. We got to pick up the kids. We got to, the dog, it has to go to the vet, you name it. All of these distractions that kind of take us away from our purposes every single day. And we have to wake up to that, and we have to come in out of that phase of this unconsciousness into like a conscious realization. In fitness and nutrition, conscious realization is typically a catalyst event. That would be somebody stepping on a scale and going, oh my God, what the heck? Or maybe they haven't worn a pair of jeans for the last year because they've been in yoga pants because of COVID and they've been working virtually. They go to put their jeans on and they're like, how did this happen? I can't even get my jeans on. Those are moments where conscious realization is an opportunity. Now, you have two options from there. When you realize something is amiss in your life, you can either revert back to careless unconsciousness, which is fascinating to me because you're aware of this problem, but we procrastinate and we ignore it because it's easier than the alternative, which is to move up the chain into conscious action. So again, you have unconscious, you're unconsciously incompetent, just literally living. You make some kind of startling realization and your consciousness level comes full circle and glaring in the face. And then you have to take action on what you've discovered from that. And I think that goals tied to that can be very helpful because when you set a goal, it's not that necessarily your goal is wrong, but your time frame might need to be adjusted. That's something that I always have to remind myself. A great mentor of mine once said that, Michael, your goals are not unrealistic. The time frame you put on them can be. Right. And I've never forgot that, and I use it often. And so that's the first thing we have to do is we actually have to be aware that there's a problem. Now what we have to do is we have to determine, well, what is my outcome? What do I want to accomplish? What's the intention of my life? And then I think it's important to create milestones in the goal. Having an intrinsic goal is certainly far more valuable than an extrinsic goal. And for those of those listeners who don't know the difference, an extrinsic goal is a result. It's an outcome. I want to lose 50 pounds. There's no other goals within that. It's an outcome goal, 50 pounds, okay? That is not a lot of accelerant. That's not a lot of petrol to get you through because guess what? 50 pounds being the goal is easy to ignore when you've only lost 5. And you're like, oh my God, I've only lost 5 and I still got to go for 45. And it's so easy to derail yourself on an extrinsic goal. There's just not enough there. Right. Intrinsic goals, however, are the actual process of achieving that end result is just as joyful and rewarding as achieving the result anyway. And I liken it to hiking. When destination hiking is a very popular thing. Backcountry hiking is my sport. I'll go out for days at a time in the middle of nowhere, and I really truly enjoy that. But essentially, when you're hiking, you don't want to just get to the top of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park just to get to the top of Half Dome. On your way there, look at the Merced River, go past Vernal Falls. Enjoy the John Muir Trail view of Nevada Falls, right? There's all these wonderful trees and flora and all these amazing rock structures around you. Half Dome, yeah, that's the goal. But all these amazing things that are happening to you as you're on that journey are equally important. And the reason that they're even more important in our goal setting structures is because milestones let you know you're on track. And if you aren't on track and you're not hitting these milestones, you have two options. One is get your ass in gear and start getting to work and making these goals come to reality because only you can manifest the outcome of your goals. And then the second thing is maybe you just need to reassess the goal.
Right.
I feel like when we do that, when we take a proactive, conscientious role in how we behave and what our life looks like, it has a fundamental impact not only on the joy that you receive from your existence, our very, very brief flicker of existence as a human being on this planet and in this plane, and really it does just makes your entire environment better because it's contagious. Joyfulness is quite contagious, and when you're successful, and success can be measured in a myriad of different ways, but I'm just talking about success in general, not financial and not personal, just success. When you're achieving things, there's a tremendous amount of momentum that can be gained, and people want on that ride.
Yeah, I think success is just simply enjoying what you do every day. Like having a good time doing what you do and having enough food on the table to sustain my life, right? Exactly. That's what I believe success is. I love what you're saying there because it's falling in love with the process, not the result, right? You want to be 50 pounds lighter. Well, you're not going to be 50 pounds lighter if you don't like doing anything but sitting on the couch and eating pizza, right? That's not going to happen. You've got to figure out a way to, and for me, I hate almost all exercise, but I love boxing, right? So there's very few things in the world that I'll jump rope for, and a competition coming up is one of those, right? So, falling in love with the process or the thing that you're doing is wildly important. If you just have this goal hanging way out in the future, the motivation to get there is just, you're right, it's very, very minimal, and it's so far away. You're like, oh, well, I can start tomorrow and get there because it's this weird relative thing that's really far away from you. But if you set a milestone, I'm going to lose 5 pounds, I'm going to walk 20 miles this month, right? Those kinds of things you can do on a regular basis. I'm going to call 50 people every single day for my business to grow my business, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to call 50 people a day and tell them about my business, right? So those milestones and enjoying the process is what it's all about, because if you just get hung up in the end goal, the end result, you'll just never get there, right? I guess you're really what you're in love with is fantasizing about something that will never come.
There's a big difference between action and daydreaming.
Yes, huge difference.
Yeah, huge. I think that another thing too, just to kind of capstone that question for you, is that we have to set better expectations for ourselves. I think that a lot of people do have very low expectations for themselves in some veins of their life, and then outrageously high expectations for return in others. In fitness in general, the media has unfortunately altered reasonable expectation for return. It's 5-minute abs. Soon it's going to be 30-second abs, And I think that it's a commentary on a larger problem that we have as a culture, which is that we expect instant gratification. We are a dopamine obsessed society. Everything has to be now, right now. Think about this. In 1900, the average American would only get as much content in their life, whether it be through stories or reading, that would fill the front page of the New York Times, right? Now, you can Google anything and have an answer instantaneously. I remember when I'm old enough to have gone to libraries, and you have to find that book, and it's not easy, and even that has kind of changed. There's nothing we have to wait for. Amazon Prime can deliver same day for some of this stuff. It's remarkable. So I think that if we can align our expectations, and we can be honest with ourselves, that's the thing, right? Intelligent trust is really hard to build. The subconscious can't tell the difference between when you say you're going to do something and don't follow through versus when somebody tells you they're going to do something for you and they don't follow through. Your brain just knows you were let down. And think about this: how many people don't? So
you don't try again, right? If you're let down, if you have a goal of 50 pounds by next month and you don't do it, then you're let down. You don't try it again.
Right. And that's what we call that cycle fitness failure. That's when people get involved in a fitness program, they don't see results, and then they quit. But then there's going to be another catalyst, and their conscious realization activates again, and they're like, oh, I got to try again. January's here, right? And what we try to do is stop the cycle of fitness failure. And so I think that it's just being honest with yourself about who you are and what you want to be, and recognize that you can make change. And that for most people, at least in the United States, that the pain and suffering that you are enduring is probably the stuff you've created. I know, really an unpopular thing to say, especially nowadays. It's always somebody else's fault. But guess what? I don't see a lot of very joyful people nowadays, And
there's not a lot. It's sad.
Yeah, and I think that blame is just such a cop-out. Yeah, there are conditions and there are times where there can be blame placed, but really at the end of the day, we have to take ownership of this one chance, one time, and so I always find it fascinating when people make excuses for their lack or for things that they think are someone else's responsibility. But at the end of the day, maybe this is my fitness background and my nutrition education, it's I know that nobody's going to control whether or not you're fit or not. You do. You 100%. You're the sole custodian of your well-being. And so, I mean, and I think, yeah, of course there's extenuating circumstances. I'm not talking about like domestic violence and stuff like that. I'm talking about generally normal adults. I'm not talking about like the fringe 1% stuff, because that's of course what everybody wants to go to, right? Well, what about this? And well, what about that? Because as a society now, that's what we do. Everything's, well, what about this? And what about that in comparison?
The extremes. Right. They want to compare the two extremes, not everybody in the mean.
Right. So, yeah. And I think that look, this takes practice, and this is the power of conscious response. It's a process that you have to go through to recognize when you have an internal or external instigator. The internal instigators that's all the crap you say to yourself, right? And then the external instigators, those can be anything. It could be anything. It can even be your environment. It could even be something in your environment, like, a big one I can tell you for most clients is that was stuff that's in their cupboard. Those are external instigators. But the power of conscious response is essentially being able to indicate when you had an automated response to an instigator, stopping that automation because it's important to you, and then creating a new behavior over that automated system, the habit, if you will, and then having a reward that's in line with what you're trying to accomplish. This is how you fundamentally change and create sustainability in fitness and nutrition, at least. And I think it translates into other areas of your life. So, and just for the sake of time, I won't take you all the way through the power of conscious response, but that book will be publishing. Oh God, it was supposed to publish this year, but I can't stop writing. It's 380 pages now. I need to stop. My publisher said, you're done. No.
Right.
It
no
was
more.
like 420 something pages on a 6x9. She's like, you got to cut this down. So we're cutting it down. Our goal is 380 pages of high quality content. And the book will be broken into 3 very distinct parts. The very first part of the book is essentially my experience working with thousands of people in behavior change so that they can create sustainability in their lifestyles. So part 1 is very, very detailed and has a lot of kind of behavioral concepts related to fitness and nutrition as an emphasis with carryover to other aspects of your life. Part 2 is actually a workbook for 12 weeks that you go through, and you're basically analyzing the hell out of your life and figuring out, whoa, where am I? Where do I want to go? What am I doing that's a detraction from that? And what can I install into my life to help me facilitate this growth and the outcome that I'm so desperately seeking? And then the third part is just fitness and nutrition education. So I'm trying to create a book that's kind of all inclusive and all in one, where people can not only learn like, okay, well, how many sets and reps should I be doing? And what the heck is circuit training compared to supersets? Yeah, that's in part 3. You can learn about that. But if you don't go to the gym, or if you don't pick up your resistance bands at home, none of that stuff's going to matter. You can know everything there is to know about fitness, but if you don't execute it, it's not going to matter.
Right.
So anyway.
I like fitness, and I like talking about fitness specifically in fitness business owners. Not that that's all the Clicks and Bricks does. We talk to all kinds of business owners, but we do talk to a lot of fitness people. And I like fitness because a lot of the same fundamentals in changing your body fall in line with changing your business, right? And managing your business and managing your body and managing your mindset and all of those things. I've always found a remarkable amount of similarities, and it's always blown my mind when really fit people they buy a gym and they're like, hey, I'm going to run this gym, and they can't figure it out. And I'm like, well, it's all the same stuff that you're doing right now for your fitness world. You just got to take that over into your business world, right? You got to balance the checkbook every day. You got to work out every day. You got to do all these things, right? So I've always been intrigued by, in the fitness industry, I've seen some people run businesses not so well, and I've seen some people run them really great. I've always found that very interesting, that fitness people, when they don't run it great, and I'm like, well, this is, if you just use what you tell your clients to do and apply that to your business, then you should be in really great shape. But it's often not, and I never could figure out why that is. But anyway, moving on. It's just a weird little thing that I've noticed as I go through my life and I deal with different people on a daily basis. But
parallels.
There are a lot of parallels, and that's why I'm okay with on Clicks and Bricks going way into the fitness side, because it brings you right to the mindset. And I wholeheartedly believe that if you're wildly unhealthy, you have no business running a business, because you're a business that at least has employees and customers, right? A solo entrepreneur doing some stuff maybe, but if other people are counting on you and you don't have a fitness regimen and you don't have any kind of health insight and any mindset stuff, you're just doomed for failure. I wholeheartedly believe that. So I think it's very, very important. And then we talk to as many people as we can, because I almost died because I had a bad health habits and running a business. So I think it's important that business owners know that fitness is, I believe, a critical part of their daily life. It needs to be a critical part of their daily life. So thank you for creating what you created, which is basically an app that people can work out from and get really individualized treatment, nutrition plans. Trust me, folks, I tried for so many years to outwork out a bad diet. It does not work. I tried so hard to just exercise for 4 hours a day and drink as much beer as I wanted and eat as much pizza as I wanted. It doesn't work. I've tried every different avenue to do that. So you have to do both. It has to be nutrition and it has to be exercise, just like it has to be employees and customers, right? You have to take care of both of those things. So they will not take care of themselves.
Well, wellness is the foundation, right? When you're fit and you feel good, not just physically, but also emotionally, feel good about yourself and the discipline that you've created and the constructive outcomes. All of those things just make you more proficient in other areas of your life. It's totally transferable.
Absolutely. So much. So on to the last question of the day. We're starting to run out of time, so we were going to do both questions. We're only going to have time for one. Sure. So do you see any technology that's like on the horizon right now, or that's been around, that's getting ready to take off, that's really going to change our lives? And some of the technology that you think in your industry, in your life, or just in general, that's really going to take off over the next 5, 10, and 20 years?
Yeah, I think that from the fundamental standpoint, or at least foundationally, websites and mobile apps and all that, we know what their function is, and they're going to be around for quite some time. However, there are some technologies that have allowed us to streamline, or at least I would say cut down the amount of time it takes to troubleshoot a challenging client situation. Wearable technology is going to be, it has become much more understood and used. It's not perfect by any means, but I think that wearable tech like Apple Watches, Fitbits, Samsungs, Garmin's, Whoops, you name the brand, it doesn't matter. All of these are really helpful tools and resources that allow you to take a snapshot at your activity and even your recovery. And that kind of brings your brain more towards the forefront of being conscientious about your well-being. Moreover, that technology has API. So we are able to, for example, we have a lot of clients with Apple Watches, and all of their data automatically gets uploaded into their coach's screen. So we can actually tell how many steps, their calorie output. They can track their workouts. Everything can be done right from their wrist now. The other thing that I've noticed is that I think that there are some potential long-term medical properties. There are these new systems where, and they're a little clunky right now, but they're basically suits that you can wear, and what they do is they track your biomechanical movement patterns, and then they can actually graph it. You can actually see any potential compensations in movement patterns or altered reciprocal inhibition, whatever it may be, that is causing an arthrokinematic problem, a joint issue, for example. Your mobility is maybe compromised, and being able to see that, I think that those technologies are going to be very interesting. Another technology that I've noticed that I'm actually looking at, I haven't decided, I'm still doing diligence on this, but there is a company that they have a mobile basal metabolic rate testing apparatus. To me, that is fascinating because it uses oxygen exchange, of course, to determine in order for it to assess your basal outcome. But I find that to be very fascinating. I mean, we use the Milford-St. John equation for our BMR and TDEEs, total daily energy expenditure equations. Right. But having technologies where not only can you wear it and it communicates and adds value and allows you to facilitate your workouts and track those workouts, and it can get downloaded into, so the coach can see it and then make better programming decisions for you, and then being able to even see movement patterns and things like that. I think it's all remarkable. I do believe the reason I'm even into that technology, I'm going to explain something here. I have an outrageous goal for Forge, of course. One of the things that we've done that they're very, very hard to find in any online fitness company that does precisely what we do is very rare. Not only is all of our programming custom, but we also have a registered dietitian on staff. That's not easy to find. And so we actually have really high level nutrition programming for people. And I don't want to stop there. I would like to have a physio or physical therapist on staff. I'd like to get a behavioral psychologist or therapist on staff. And I want to make it so that Forge is this one-stop shop where you can go for everything related to your well-being. If you blew your ACL out, no problem. We have a physical therapist that can work with you directly online. If you're having really hard issues related to maybe a low-lying eating disorder that's manifesting and you're really struggling with it, well, no problem. Your coach will put you in touch with our behavioral therapist, and maybe you can get some help there. And that stuff is very exciting to me because this is all solution based. This is all about enhancing the quality of your life and doing it in a way that is seamless and comfortable. You don't have to go anywhere. It's all from your mobile app. The amount of Zoom sessions that we do as a company it's outrageous. You would think we are 10 times the size that we are if you saw our Zoom logs. We spend a tremendous amount of time interacting with clients. And I think that all of these technologies, as they get better and better and better, and as Forge grows, which I really hope we're able to do over the next few years, we can add all of these things in. It's almost the perfect combination of technology and professional expertise in one. And we're not seeing a lot of that out there right now. So I would say that wearable tech is going to be a big deal.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Wearable technology is going to be huge. It's a huge thing right now. I think you got wearable tech and then making dumb things smarter on both sides of those things, right? So, treadmills are okay, but they can be smarter. Rowing machines can be way smarter. Anything that you can think of. Doors can be smarter, right? We can really track how many people walked in the front door every day, so we know how many people are in a building, right? I mean, those kinds of technologies, I think, are gonna, making people more data driven, and then making dumb things smarter. I think are two things that are in this world going to be just huge run-outs for the next 20 years as we're talking about the Internet of Things, and we can really IP everything on the whole planet. I think we're going to see some really neat, interesting things moving forward. Before we go, do you have anything that you would like to share with our audience before we end today's episode?
Well, I think the one thing that I would leave people with is that it is okay to acknowledge and understand that fitness and nutrition management, your well-being management, it is hard. It's not a simple concept to begin with. It requires a tremendous amount of energy and consistency and agility. You have to look at your program and say, okay, this isn't working anymore. I've hit a plateau, and get out of that. But I would say that I want to just leave people with a note of positive encouragement that no matter what's going on in your life, or how busy you are, or how tired, or all of the things that are vying for your attention in this crazy world, really at the end of the day, if you can carve out and maximize to whatever degree you can some form of well-being activities in your life, it will make an improvement in very short order. And even though you might feel that it's hopeless, or you've tried so many different things, this diet and that program and whatever, at the end of the day, don't give up. That's the message that I think I'd like to leave with. And that's not just for your fitness and nutrition, since this is a lot of business owners. Don't give up on your business either. You're going to, like I said, we lost 36% of our business in February and March when COVID hit. We recovered all of it.
Yes, absolutely.
All of it, plus some. So never
phenomenal job there. Yeah. So the only failure you can really have is giving up, right? Those small failures throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, those are just mishaps. But the only failure you can actually have is quitting and walking away, right?
I was going to say that's true. That, you know what? I don't think of things as failures until you don't get up. Then you failed.
Yeah, if you use them as learning experiences, then it's learning. It's not failing. So thank you for that insight. Very much appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for joining us today. I very much appreciate your time, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for today's show, folks. Again, today's show was brought to you by mygosite.com. Start your 14-day free trial. I don't even think you need a credit card, right? You can just go on, sign up, get your name, point your domain name to it, have a website up in a couple of minutes, right? If you sell books, you have any product service, it's got everything you need in one spot. That's it for today, folks. Get to work.